All right, welcome to Boyce Preview Day. My name is Chris Smith. I'm the Director of Student Development here in Boyce College in the Student Life Department. And for this segment of the day, we want to talk to a few of our parents. So these are men who have children that are current students here, and in one case, even alumni, and wanted to get their perspective on Boyce College, their experience in deciding to bring their students here to Boyce, and then what their experience has been like as parents of current students. So I want to let them introduce themselves. John Krotz, do you mind starting and introducing yourself, where you're from, and how you're connected to Boyce?
Sure. My name is John Krotz. My wife is Lynn. We have four kids, and I'm a pastor on the south side of Atlanta at Faith Bible Church of Sharpsburg, Georgia. I'm an alumni of Southern Seminary with a D-Min. And so once I started looking around for schools for our oldest daughter, Carissa, we definitely had our eyes on Boyce because of my time there on campus. During my time, whenever I would have an opportunity, I would interview students from Boyce, particularly young ladies, and just say, what's your experience been like? And do you feel safe on the open campus? And I've got all kinds of wonderful assurances. I'd ask them what local churches they were involved in. And so all of those things kind of went into our decision process for sending our first daughter, and then that sort of made the way for our second daughter and many from our church as well to be at Boyce.
Yeah, that's great. Your family and your church has been such a blessing to us. Thank you. John Watson, do you mind telling everybody who you are, what do you do, how you're connected to Boyce?
Sure. So I am a transplant New Englander who's been in Louisville for over 9 years. We actually live not far from Boyce College in the seminary, and so for those years, plus the years we knew about it before coming to Louisville, I think it's played a valuable role in our lives as far as all of the excellent tools and resources that have come from faculty and staff, and even people who have gone out from there, pastors and teachers. So we moved here, like I said, over 9 years ago, and I, to some degree, though, I feel as my son's grown up in church here in Louisville at Kenwood Baptist, that he's been going to Boyce ever since. But and that's to speak to the seminary and Boyce students who have, taken him under his wing for many years. At Kenwood, he was the only teenager in our church at times, and though that's changed dramatically over the years, he's always been someone that students have taken under their wing and had an interest in, and so it wasn't his the first schools that he was talking about. He was looking at trying some other places, and he had some exotic dreams that we quickly reminded him cost money. So when he went with a student, actually invited him to come to one of the dorm meetings, and I'm pretty sure that was the game changer for him. He went to not the preview day, but the Be a Bulldog event that was on campus, and I think he was hooked from that point on as far as being a student. So
great. And now Andrew's finishing up his sophomore year.
That is correct. Yep, he is finishing sophomore year.
Yeah. So just if you don't mind, tell us a little bit more. You're talking about him coming to Be a Bulldog Day, coming and popping in on a dorm meeting. Do you remember what exactly it was that led him to choose Boyce?
Really, it was the dorm meeting. He hadn't really mentioned this as a desire. We obviously had put it on his list and encouraged it, as both my wife and I went to small Bible colleges ourselves, and told him not to discount them.
Mhm.
And he went to dorm meeting, and the atmosphere and the community and the uh, lifestyle that was there really um, grabbed his attention, grabbed his heart, and is really all about who he is as a person. And which was encouraging to us. You know, he desired to go to a place where he could learn and also be encouraged and edified spiritually.
That's great. Yeah, so for any of you watching that don't know, Dorm Meeting is our weekly worship service for just the Boyce College students. And it's a regular gathering of 400 or so college students. We bring in speakers from around campus and around the city and around the globe to preach God's word to our students. And it's a really special time, student-led worship, great preaching, and I'm glad to hear it was a positive influence on Andrew, because I'm kind of responsible for dorm meetings, so I like to hear it's going well. John Krotz, you've now gone through this process twice with Carissa and now Danielle. Tell us about that decision-making process, what stood out to Carissa, and then was there anything different for Danielle that drew her to Boyce?
Well, I certainly think that Boyce is such a special school because of its connection with Southern Seminary. And I think for the right kind of student who will take advantage of the ministry opportunities through Southern as well as Boyce, it's just been so valuable. And so we looked at a number of schools. We did kind of like the couple day a week classical academy here in Georgia, and the rest homeschool. So kind of a modified homeschool format. And we really wanted Carissa to go to a place that had just a strong biblical worldview emphasis. And we weren't sure what she was going to do. She had some interests. She's a very good writer. And but she fell in love with biblical counseling once she got here and really poured herself into that. Her great desire was to just be a godly wife and mom and to be equipped for a life of service in the local church. And so when we looked at some of the other schools that were on our radar, they had some different opportunities, but the theological commitments there at Boyce, with a high view of God and a high view of God's word, and the local church emphasis for the students to really pour themselves into some of the great churches that are now have been raised up by the Lord in Louisville, and then surrounded by like-minded people. As John said, I kind of think, those old Bible colleges, they're not as many around anymore, but Boyce really fills that need where a young man or a young woman could be equipped with a biblical worldview for a very hostile world, as well as some basic Bible and theology and church history, as well as being able to specialize in something that's either going to equip them for ministry or the next stage of life. But whatever Boyce may lack in some of the academic programs and some of those things because of its smaller size, I think it's more than made up for by access to some of the great things going on at Southern Seminary. Last semester, for example, there was a conference on expository preaching, and I came up just as a pastor, but I also came up to visit with Danielle, and we got to sit side by side and hear Alistair Begg in chapel at Southern, and she's got full access to that as a Boyce student. So it was great. We were really cautious and tentative. In fact, Carissa was just signed up for the Biblical Worldview certificate at first, where she could basically try it out and get kind of a rounded biblical worldview, as well as have those credits apply to her first year of school. But it didn't take long at all. Just being part of the community and the church she got involved with Clifton Baptist Church nearby to the campus. She just loved it, and then it became a passion. How can I work it out to stay, Dad? And so that became our mission. Then when our other daughters and friends of Carissa from our church here in Georgia would come and visit, they also fell in love with it. And, like I said, the right kind of student really benefits from Boyce, a ministry-minded who will grab onto those opportunities. And in God's providence, between us and the classical school that's got some connection to our church, we have a lot of those right kind of students. And so we've had a neat little pipeline from Georgia to Kentucky.
Yeah, we've benefited greatly from all the students y'all have sent us. So yeah, as you're hearing, you've got the biblical worldview, which I think we typically locate in the faculty. You think about what's going on in the classroom, the teaching, the theology, church history that was mentioned. You have the community, more of what we do in student life, though of course faculty involved in that, trying to encourage what we call authentic biblical community, where students are challenging one another to grow in their knowledge and love for the Lord. And then the local church emphasis. It's one of our core values in student life, and it's a value of this whole campus to see students primarily discipled within their local churches and to honor the local church as the center of God's mission in the world, and hopefully, to see the nations, the four far corners of the earth reached with the gospel through local church ministry. So I'm glad to hear that came through. Those are things we value, and I'm glad to hear that it's very visible and obvious. John Watson, your son Andrew's been here now for a year and a half or so. What do you see happening in his life? How do you see him growing? How do you see this community, the classes, changing him in this first year and a half at Boyce?
He has grown tremendously in his love for the Bible, the classes that he's taking, whether it's Old or New Testament surveys or hermeneutics. He's just falling in love with God's word. And that, as a father, is something that you love to see. We've always encouraged his own personal walk with the Lord, and he has, by God's grace, been someone who has always desired that. And it's always been a joy to see him spending his own time in the word. But to be able to have conversations with him now as a young man, as a 20-year-old who, articulates well what he's learning, what he's feeling, what he's thinking, what he's growing through, and to see that amongst his friends. I mean, we have the added blessing of not being far from the campus that, we get a few adopted children every so often stop by and hang out in our living room. So it's just been an encouragement to see that, and to see who he's, involved with, and that they're growing spiritually. Some of them we've seen over the 2 years that he's been there, and we've seen some of these same people also growing spiritually, and the encouragement that is. So, I would say that's the biggest thing. And to parents out there who are nervous about dropping their kids off for the first time and things like that, I would just encourage them to let them know there are a myriad of churches out there with people just like my wife and I who desire to, pour into these young people's lives and to be a blessing to them however we can, and to encourage and edify them. So it's just been a blessing. And I know that there's other homes, there's professors' homes that my son's gone into, and we go to church with some of them, but there's also been new professors that we've come to know, and that he's come to know and love as he takes his classes and grows in his love for the Bible and his love for learning.
That's great. And John Krotz, you've had one daughter go all the way through her degree here at Boyce and has now graduated and moved away. And you've got another daughter approaching the end of her time here at Boyce. How have you seen them grow and change? What has been a big difference made here at Boyce?
Yes, it has been precious to my wife and I to see our daughters grow in what we've said a number of times over these years, life skills, just life skills. It's been great. It's not that they've been completely sheltered, but they have been homeschooled, and they have been in a Christian environment a lot, of course, in a pastor's home. But to see them kind of get out, have jobs on campus, and working hard, taking responsibility on their own, their involvement in their church has been just fantastic. And just like John said, we can also testify our daughters have been in the homes of professors and have been impacted by that. They've also been stretched in some new ways with some new ideas that are very much kindred, like-minded, but a little bit different, and maybe have a little bit different spin on things. And so that has provoked them to ask questions, to seek the Lord and seek his word on their own, to figure out, personalize their faith that they've been brought up in. And both of our daughters have been involved in student life. They've been on the councils and planned activities, and it's been so neat to see Carissa having grown in just her responsibility and project management, if you will, in putting together some big events. Of course, Danielle now is one of the RAs, and so she's had all kinds of ministry opportunities that have just been so precious to see. And we're very, very thankful for the ways that the Lord has grown them through their time at Boyce.
As your daughters are making the transition here to Boyce, what's been something good that's kind of helped them get started and make that transition well?
Yeah, Chris, we took advantage of Boyce's dual enrollment classes, even when they were high school students. And our youngest daughter, Chloe, who's a senior in high school, is just completing her 7th dual enrollment class with Boyce. And so it's been so great, even as John mentioned, having these wonderful theological conversations with his son from things that he's been learning. We've been able to have some of those same kind of conversations even while Chloe's finishing her high school. And when Danielle was taking some of the dual enrollment classes, I told her, I said, we don't know where you're going to go. You might like to go to Boyce, but maybe the Lord will have a different place. But these classes are going to give you great foundational material that even if you didn't get credit for them at the school, I would still want you to have them because they're so great. And of course, it helps as well if you're looking at the budget. Those classes are less than once you get on campus. And so that has really given them a great head start and a great exposure. And so even when we've come up to visit our older daughters, our younger daughters have met professors and said, hey, I've had you in class already. Yeah. So that's been outstanding.
Well, that's great. Yeah, and especially now, we just expanded some of our dual enrollment offerings, so even more students can take advantage of those classes. In the last few minutes we have, do you have anything you would want to leave with the parents that are watching? Any words of advice, encouragement as they're walking through the season of trying to decide on a college for their son or daughter?
I guess I'll go first. One of the things I would encourage is, as you just asked in the last question, how have I seen Drew grow? But over the years that we've been here in Louisville, we've seen Boyce College grow tremendously. Mm-hmm. I can remember when we first got here, and it, I think, occupied one building on the top of the hill there. And it's grown tremendously, not just in size, but in what it offers. There are a lot of new opportunities available to people who, we want people to go into ministry and to be studying to be pastors and counselors, and all of those things are important, but we also need Christian businessmen and Christian educators and communicators and things like that. And Boyce is doing a tremendous job in growing in those offerings and in different things like the humanities and things like that. So I would encourage people to not discount it, because it's small in number, I think it's grown tremendously and can have a tremendous impact upon our communities as these students go forward and go into life.
That's great. Thank you, John. John Kratz?
Yes, I really appreciate the way John put that. I totally agree. Even though Boyce is small, it has got a lot to offer your young people. And, you know, one of the words I use with my daughters a lot is equip. We want to see them equipped in biblical worldview, basic foundations in Bible and theology and ministry, but we want them equipped in ministry opportunities like that they have in the connection with Southern and with student life and their local church involvement. And Boyce has just been really great. And we're so thankful for the efforts made to make it affordable. I mean, obviously, the cost of schools is crazy. And, you know, sometimes, especially if you don't know exactly what your student is going, what direction they're going to go, I mean, wouldn't it make sense to give them a good foundation for their Christian life, to equip them? Boyce is accredited. Many jobs, they want to know you got an accredited degree, and then they're going to take you and run. Of course, our daughter Carissa is a reporter for World Magazine, you know, which is kind of a surprising outcome for being a biblical counseling major. But everything she learned was part of God's equipping her at Boyce. And we're just very thankful for the direction she's headed. And Danielle is an education major, but has a real heart for missions. So thank God for that, where you're not just learning to be a teacher, you're also being equipped with the basics, a foundation for even potential ministry cross-culturally in the future, according to God's plan. We don't know what God has, but very thankful for these things.
Yeah, thank you both. As I think Dr. Moeller said last preview day, you know, choosing a college, part of it is the degree, part of it is the academic training, but a big part of it is, you know, choosing who you want your son or daughter to be friends with. Who do you want them to grow up to be like? Because you end up looking like the people you study with and study under. So I'm glad to hear that your son and both of your daughters have had such a great experience here at Boyce. We've loved having them here. I love seeing Andrew around campus. And yeah, Carissa and Danielle have been such a blessing. Thank y'all both for taking time out of your day to do this. And I hope it's been beneficial to you watching. And if you have any other questions or you're interested to read and learn any more about something you've heard here, please check out our website, boycecollege.com/parents. There's a page directly directed at you as parents, and we hope that provides good information as you're making this decision. And please, you know, don't hesitate to reach out. My name's Chris Smith again, and I work in Boyce Student Life. Myself, any of our staff, and any of the faculty around campus would be glad to answer any questions you may have. So please, don't be a stranger, and we hope to see you on campus soon.